Flaming Sword here, back at it again, once again, and today, people, today, I got you with a very special deck profile, and finally it's been completed after months of the patience. This deck profile should have been done in about a month or two ago, but it's here finally, and it's beginning. So this is the Agro Dinosaur infect of a build. It's not fully committed to infect. It has other ways of beating your opponents with just besides infect. Infect is just throw in there just the shenanigans. And throw in a way of what would happen if Craig, Blood, Chet, and GB1 actually work together. So this is basically not the competitive version yet. Though there will be a deck profile update for that, for this deck. And it's going to be a very interesting one. So for Agro Dinosaur Infect build is for the commander Gishtat's Son's Avatar. The ability of Trample, Vigilance, and Haste. Whenever Gishtat, Son's Avatar, deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from top of your library, put any number of dinosaur creatures cards among them onto the battlefield, and the rest in the bottom of your library random order. Good dinosaur for 7/6 8 drop, and there are ways for you to reduce that mana cost. And he's like your only synergy into for your tribal build of a dinosaur, and just go ham. When it pops off, it will pop off. There will be a couple of changes from the deck, as you would see over time, but that'll depend if time actually accepts it. So for right now, we'll start on lands. This is basically about 35 lands. So we got the first one being the command tower. Pretty standard command tower, best land in the game. Mirroring landscape for you to help out the search for more basic lands into play. Tapped. Evolving wilds for 1. So difference between the two is you get one only the share of the color, and this one just only gets you 1. So you'll be able to get 3 lands into play a little faster if you get both into play. Then your Crest Wolf run, just to build it a way to give Gishtath the plus X, plus O, where and a trample until the end of the turn, where you pay the X and a red and a green to tap it to give that much, so that way you would flip more reveal the top more cards from your library to have more chances of more dinosaurs into play. Next up is the Gruul Kill Gate of the dual land, which is not bad. Then a bounce land, the Gruul Turf, the only bounce land in this that you really would need. Clifftop Retreat is a good land for Boros. Sun Petal Grove, real good. Along with a fortified village. Enters the battlefield, you may reveal a 4 Circle Plains card from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. Very interesting, to say the least, for that. Then Kaboni Vista. Tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Sungrass Perry. This land is only in there because I'm not sure what other lands I would want to prefer over him. We'll see how it is. I've been playtesting the deck a bit without the commander lately. Offline, and you don't play this land that much unless if you use it for discard fodder, but that's it. And now for the basic lands, you got about your 8 mountains, about your 2, 4, 6, 7 forests, and 7 plains. Usually you would go for about 8 each, but it depends if you're able to get better lands for the searches. Onwards with the creatures now. So the first one will be the main homeboy of the dinosaurs, the Sakaba, Primal Calamities. Good, very good dinosaur to play for 9 drop. Again, this deck, you can make it a reduction on it, so it will be easier for you to play him as well if you wanted to. And untap all your lands. You can even float the lands to get the additional pluses out of it. Just deal 3 damage to a target creature for 2 in a red, 2 in a green to destroy a target artifact or enchantment, and 2 in a white to gain 3 life. So it's very interesting for that. And I'm liking how that is. Next up with it, we have Regisaur Alpha. Gives other dinosaurs you control have haste. So you can even swing with them in most of your dinosaurs that you have in here. Though there are non-dinosaurs in here, there might be some changes for that to make it easier, but some of them, it just makes it easier if you don't pull the lands. And when Regisaur Alpha enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 dinosaur creature token with trample. So it helps out to build your board up a bit more and all that. Next up, we have a Raging Regisaur. Whenever it attacks, it deals 1 damage to a target creature or player. Very interesting to do that. One of your creatures that tap for mana, and is actually a good one in my opinion. Sartar Druid. This card has been slept on. What people don't realize that for a Gruul or any other color combination that is more than red and green, it's real good. To tap it for green, and whenever it's tapped for mana, deal 1 damage to each opponent. It doesn't say on to a player or opponent. It just says in each opponent, so you can just deal 1 damage to your entire board area. Next up, what we have is Sagehorn Ceratops. For its emerge, when Sagehorn Ceratops is dealt damage, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. It's really not bad for that. Axiton Seer. Real good just to tap it for 1 mana of any color of your mana pool. And if you want to, after you do that, sacrifice it or return a target dinosaur card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's a good way to not only use it for a land, but also sack it if you don't really need it as a land anymore. Now onward with the red creatures. We'll do the first one being Atali, Primal Storm. Really good. When it attacks, exile top card of each player's library. You may cast any number of non-land cards exile this way without paying their mana cost. So you can just use them in a way to build up your board, or advance your board even more, or while disrupt your opponent at the same time. Next up, we have Raptor Hatchling. Real good just to deal damage, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. So it's a good way to replace itself, and if it dies from the effects that it would deal damage to it, and then you could just replace it with a 3/3 dinosaur token. It's a good replacement fodder for that at times. Next up, a Burning Sun's Avatar. Enters the battlefield, deal 3 damage to a target opponent, and 3 damage up to 1 target creature. So you could deal about 6 damage total, but it's only separative for that 6. Which is not bad, and it's real good in that sense. Then we have the Charging Monosaur for trample and haste. Not bad. Then Charging Duckston. Real good for good situations. Trample, and it would deal combat damage to a player. It deals double that damage to the player instead. So it's not bad for a 5-drop. Next up, a Rampaging Frostodon. Menace, and players can't gain life. When another creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. It includes yourself, so you will be also taking 1 damage each time you play another creature into the battlefield. So it's in a sense that it would hurt you, but it would mostly ruin your opponents if they run more on life gain or just having a bigger board. So you would just deal them a bunch of damage and everything. Next up, Foreigner of the Empire. In my opinion, I only use it just to enter the battlefield and search it for a dinosaur card and put it on top of my library. It's like my Enlightened Tutor, but for dinosaurs. I'd rather have it as that than the bottom of the 2. Whenever a dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may deal 1 damage to each creature. So there's a combo loop for this deck as well. It's like a stalemate one if you don't have any spell or sorcery or instant that doesn't destroy a target creature, it would all make sense at once when you see it. For those who do know it, hats to you. One of the pieces of the combo for the infinite loop is Marani Raptor. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Marani Raptor deals 2 damage to it. If it's a dinosaur dealt damage this way, it gets a +2/+0 till the end of the turn. And the 1-card combo is with the Polyraptor. Now, here's the combo and how it goes. You play the Marani Raptor first, then the Polyraptor. Marani Raptor will trigger and activate Polyraptors when Polyraptor is dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor. You create that infinite loop until it's if you don't have it like your third piece of card to get rid of Marani Raptor, you'll get a bunch of Polyraptors to the point that it's a stalemate in the game. And it would end in a draw and everything. So sometimes it's good, sometimes you have to make sure you have the correct pieces in order to pull the infinite combo loop. Next up that we have is Wayward Sawtooth. Really good dinosaur in my opinion. For you to have the City's Blessing, and you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Can't attack or block unless you have City's Blessing. So it's not bad. I just like it that allows you to play additional lands. So you won't have to use too much of cards to play more lands. If this was a more of a land-based deck, if this had more lands, then this deck would be going off fast. But it has its limits, so I have to make sure of that. Next up is Ghalta, Primal Hunger. Costs less to cast, where X is the total of power of creatures you control, and trample. So it's real good for the reduction, and since dinosaurs have bigger power, you can easily just pay 2 mana and play Ghalta. Basically casting Ghalta almost for free. And now one of your other reduction creatures and spells to do the reduction besides Marani Raptor is Knight of Stampede, which will cost your dinosaurs 2 less to cast. So it makes it easier, and this is what I mostly would prefer for any dinosaur deck. That way you have that mana reduced reduction and won't have to worry about paying too much. Colossal Dreadnought, just another good dinosaur to give it trample and just to build the board. Thrashing Brontodon is good. Pay 1 to sacrifice it to destroy the targeted artifact or enchantment. So if your opponent has a Hate Maker enchantment or a Hate Maker artifact that it disrupts your plays, pay 1, sack, and destroy. And you would continue your advance board. Ripjaw Raptor will be next. Dealt damage, draw a card, real good. Good for blocking. Sometimes it's good when you play this with Marani Raptor, and then you would be able to have a free draw off of it. Next up is one of your other mana creatures to use, Dover of the Mighty. It gets a +2/+2 as long as you control a dinosaur. So it would become a 3/3 if there is another one. And then you just tap it to pay to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it's not bad. Then your Dead Scored Scavenger, which when it enters the battlefield or attacks, it may exile a target card from a graveyard. If it's a creature, you gain 2 life. If it's a non-creature, it gets a +1/+1 till the end of the turn. So it's not bad. Now we have our plane sections. We'll be having Goring Ceratops, favorite of the dinosaurs of them all, which has double strike, and when it attacks, other creatures I control gain double strike till the end of the turn. So it's real good in that sense. Then Majestic Heliotops, which has flying, and when it attacks, another target dinosaur you control gains flying till the end of the turn. So it's real good, because you could give it your gift that not only flying and have a bunch of power, but also flying along with that trample. So that way, it disrupts the opponent from trying to use their land non-flying creatures to block your Gishtath. and you will be able to swoop it in and deal the massive damage and flip more while dealing that commander damage at the same time. Next up is Satulpa Primal Dawn. It has Flying, Double Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. All it's missing from 2 more abilities to add would have been Hexproof and Haste. Then this dinosaur would be too much would be the only card that has a bunch of abilities. It's that kind of weird. Next up we have Temple Alistar. Altisar. It's actually real good. If it's sorcerer, it would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent it all, but 1 damage of that. Prevent 1, but 1 of that damage. So you can use it in a way to, with Marani Raptor, instead of dealing 2 damage to your other dinosaurs, you would be dealing 1, and it would get a +2, and Marani Raptor would get a +2/+0 each time you play it. Each time a dinosaur enters the battlefield. So you would have a sense of being able to just only take for your dinosaur to take 1 damage for your Marani Raptor to grow ridiculously strong 2 times of that damage. Next up is Imperial Ceratops. Whenever it's dealt damage, you gain 2 life. So it's a good sense of regaining life from what you lost at times. Because of Rampaging Frostodon's effect, or just getting burned from burn spells, such like that. Next up is Trapjaw Tyrant. Real good when it dealt damage, exile a target creature an opponent controls until Trapjaw Tyrant leaves the battlefield. So it's a good sense of kind of like a Grasp of Fate, but you exile a target creature the opponent controls, not from a graveyard, which is good for that sense for the trigger, but you would have to be careful on that, because if it's an ETB trigger, which stands for Enter the Battlefield trigger creature, you exile it, and when this leaves, you just advance their gameplay by having that creature return into the battlefield, and the ETB trigger will trigger again for the 2nd time. Next up is the Awakening Sun's Avatar. Real good when it enters the battlefield. If you cast it from hand, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures. So it's a way to build your board and nothing but dinosaurs. If it's impossible to prevent your opponent from using your non-dinosaurs to their advantage. And it gets rid of their dinosaurs, since their deck is not mostly made out of dinosaurs. I doubt there will be any decks that run dinosaurs except for Dinosaur Tribal. So that's the only way you would see it. Now onward with our Planeswalkers. And there's only 1 in this because it's easier and is actually the better Planeswalker than the other one that it was originally added in here. And this is what I mostly prefer. Watley Radiant Champion. Love this Planeswalker to death. Because you get a +1 on her loyalty, so it gets her to 4. Then put a loyalty counter on her for each creature you control. So it's additional. It's not saying it's just a plus. Oh, it just doesn't get that +1 from that loyalty that it would gain itself. And it would just be 5 or 6. And not get that as a 7. And when technically it actually does. -1 to target creature gets +X/+X till the end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Real good for another target for Gishtat, so that way you can reveal more. While Double Strike as well, as I forgot to mention, when you target it with Gishtat for the Double Strike, it reveals the other of that additional. So for 7 it would Double Strike. 14, it reveals top 14 cards of your library for more dinosaur permanents to be into play. and Watley's ultimate as well for aids. You get the album with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. So it has a draw synergy in a way. But it's not like all highly ridiculous of it. Now for our sorceries, which we have the first one as the start for the ramp spells, Thunder, Herd, and Migration. As an additional for a cost to reveal a dinosaur. If you don't, you pay or pay 1. So you would be only paying 2 and agreeing for it. On top of that, you get for the ability, you can just search your basic land card and put it into the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. So it's not bad. I would mostly prefer just to at least have a dinosaur in hand as the opening hand if you have this out. Otherwise, you would have to mulligan if you don't. Because you really do not want to pay like 2 and a green just to have a search. When you could just pay 1 and a green and reveal a dinosaur for that. Next is Kadama's Reach. Real good. Search your library for 2 basic land cards. Reveal those. Put 1 into the battlefield tapped and the other in your hand. Shuffle your library. Explosive Venegation. Which... search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them into battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Real good. Harvest Season to search your library for X amount of basic lands, where X is the equaling to the amount of tapped creatures you control. So, and enters the battlefield tapped. Goes into the battlefield tapped. So this is kind of good if you really want to advance even more of your boards, somewhat of early on. For more lands, because you don't want this in the later game, because then you'll be not only having a bunch of mana, but you won't have anything to do with them, unless if you're going to recast your commander each time because of the commander tax you had to do every time. Next up is Tempted with Discovery. I really don't recommend this card that much, because sometimes it will give your opponent an option. But it's nice to have when you really want to do the politicking of a way that if your opponent is having mess ups on lands, you could just use this and it'll be like, hey, I can help you to get more lands. But you have to do something for me in return. In that processing of me actually giving you an option to search a land while I search more than one land. In that process of for you accepting the offer. So it's good in that sense. And then finally, enter the unknown. Target creature you control explores. Reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand if it's a land. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. Then put the card back or into the graveyard, and you may play additional land this turn. So it's a good of a 1 green spell to do that kind of stuff. It just helps in a sense you could do more. Now for the only infect card, which is Triumph of the Hordes. If you really do want to make it nothing but a committed of an infect, Agro Dinosaur infect, be my guest. Just know you're going to have a target, you're going to have a huger target on your back when you have a bunch of cards with infect mixed with dinosaurs. With Triumph the Horde till the end of the turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, trample, and infect. Overwhelming Stampede, real good, because you can target other creatures like Galta, Sakama, or Gishtath, and give the other creatures that +X+X, where X is the greatest power, and you can actually do additional more damage, and hopefully one-shot your opponent, if possible. If not, that's fine. Next up, Strength of the Pack. To put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So you could just put on all your creatures 2 +1/+1 counters. Easier. Next up, Green Sun Zenith. For you to search your library for a green creature with a converted mana cost X or less. Put it into battlefield, then shuffle your library along with shuffling Green Sun Zenith. So it's real good in that sense for you to target Knight of Stampede Or if you already have Knighted Stampede and you need that one combo piece, then you can just search for that green creature as the combo piece and pull it off. Next up, we got Brass's Bounty. For each land you control, you get a treasure token with. So when you pay 7, you get 7 treasure, or even more if you have the more out. And it makes easier of your plays for you to play Gishtat if you already have a 7. That way you can have that follow-up play. And next up, it is Demolish to destroy a target artifact or land. Sometimes you would go for the land the most, just to screw your opponent while you try to advance more faster if your opponent's already ahead. If it's one up ahead of you, then you can just jump back and with Demolish, destroy the land, and you'll be able to catch up faster within the next turn. Next up is Solemn Offering, which destroys target artifact or enchantment. You gain 4 life. Not bad in that sense. Now, for instance, is Deflecting Pomp, real good. The opponent will take the damage instead of you from the next source of damage. So if you would block up a 1, but there's 1 open, Deflecting Pomp will deal the opponent that bigger damage instead of you. So it's good in that sense. Then Heartwarming Reputation, good to help out the hand at times if you're stuck on a couple of cards that you can't play early on. This would help out in a way for you to do that processing. Next up, for a next instant, one of the most powerful planes instants that has ever been created, and which is Silence. Your opponent can't cast spells this turn. So it prevents them from trying to counter it over, because as soon as it's activated, they can't play anything. So it's like a free Dovin's Veto. Or any of the spells that said this card can't be countered. Next up is Pride of Conquerors, to give a creature a +1/+1. But if the city's Blessings is on the battlefield, you get that target creature gets +2/+2 instead. Divine Verdict, for a 1 target, destroy target attacking or blocking creature. Just to let you all know, this deck doesn't run board wipes, because I don't have that, like, a protection from my own board when I have mine advanced. And the only way for me to do that is for me to make that deck competitive. So, when the deck is competitive, you will see board wipes in here, because of the one specific card for you to be able to do that. Next up is Safe Passage. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control this turn. Source the Plowshares, to exile a target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Path to Exile, to exile a target creature card. Its controller searches their library for a basic land and put it into battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. So it's not bad. Chaos Warp, the owner of a target permanent to shuffle it into their library. Then reveal the top. If it's a permanent, put that in onto the battlefield. 9 times out of 10, this card is a little bit risky. You really don't want to play this card too often or use it that much, because you could potentially give one problem and give yourself a bigger problem at the same time. 9 times out of 10, it would be a land. 8 times out of 10, it would be a land. So it's not that, like, risque type of a way, but it's a little gamble. Next up, a Weapon Surge. They either pay the original or overload, which overloaded would have been to each creature I control will gain +1/+0 and gain first strike till the end of the turn. Next up is Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller puts a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. So it's good because you can destroy a permanent. If you destroy your own, then you get the beast token instead of your opponent. But sometimes you have to take that risk. Naturalize to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Natural End to destroy target artifact or enchantment. You gain 3 life, so it's not bad in that sense. For artifacts now, we have Soaring, the classic for any deck to build for rocks. Herald's Horn, real good to name the chosen of the creature type. The chosen of the creatures of that type is mana is reduced. The cost is reduced by 1 to cast. And at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's the creature card of the chosen type, reveal it and add it to your hand. So you will be able to be like drawing 2 cards in a sense. Fingershrews Banner, real good. Enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. It gets creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1, and whenever a creature spell of the chosen type enters, whenever you cast it, draw a card. So it helps out in that draw sense, in a way as well. Emerald Medallion, real good for green spells to reduce cost by 1, so you will be saving your mana at the process. Phyxian's Arcbow, real good. Pay X and tap it to discard a card, reveal the top X of your library, and you put a creature card into the battlefield that its mana cost, with the converted mana cost X or less, and then the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Next up is the Immortal Sun. This card, it will be replaced for sure, because I really don't like it, because it includes yourself. Because players can't activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. So if you have a Planeswalker that is deadly and it's not yours, then that's fine. But it also affects your own. When you have Watley reigning a champion, you want to get the album. This prevents it. And at the beginning of your draw step, you draw an additional card. Spells you cast, it costs 1 less to cast. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's good. It's just not what I would recommend in a tribal deck like this. Unless if you don't ever run Planeswalkers, this card is good for you. It's all good for you. That's all I can say for that. Last card, it will be an enchantment, which is Radiant Destiny. Ascend to get the City's Blessing. Enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get a +1/+1. As long as you have City's Blessing, they also gain Vigilance. So it's real good in a sense for that. But anywho, that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Comment below for any more deck profiles or any updates that you'll be seeing when it comes to these deck profiles. Comment below for any booster box openings that you guys recommend me to open. Hope you guys have a good day. Flaming Sword here. I'm out.